alone in a house in the middle of nowhere. 26-year-old Sarah Harper huddled beneath an old wool blanket on the floor. Outside, a violent thunderstorm raged, wind screaming through the eaves and rain lashing against the windows. Lightning flashed intermittently, turning night into day, revealing the dusty interior of the isolated cottage and its peeling wallpaper. Thunder rumbled, the power flickered and died, plunging her into darkness. Then the emergency backup lights clicked on, casting long distorted shadows that jumped and flickered with every gust of wind. For the last 2 hours, she'd been trying to read anything to keep her mind off the fact that she was alone in a dilapidated house in the middle of a raging storm. When the wind suddenly rose to a piercing howl, like an animal in pain, and the rain began to beat a tattoo against the window panes, Sarah paused, listening. Then she heard it. Over the roar of the elements, a sound as distinct as if it had been made in a vacuum. Knock, 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 knock. It came from the back door, which was locked and bolted, but that couldn't have been the sound. She strained to listen, heart beginning to race. Knock, 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 knock. It came again, exactly the same pattern, too deliberate to be the wind. And now she noticed that the storm outside had abruptly quieted. No longer able to hear anything over the sound of the relentless knocking, Sarah scrambled to her feet, knocking over a chair in her haste. Her phone was in the other room, but its battery was dead from overuse. She tried to dial 911, but there was no signal here, no reception. Panic constricting her throat, Sarah backed away from the door. She didn't want to open it. Whatever was out there, it was big enough to break down the reinforced wooden panels. The knocking grew louder, more insistent. What was it? Who was out there? Was she being stalked by a madman? Her mind raced, conjuring up all manner of gruesome scenarios. She needed to get out of the house, escape the danger, but she couldn't leave without her car keys, which were on a hook in the hall closet. She glanced back at the door. The knocking had stopped. Had whoever or whatever was out there given up? Relief flooded through her, but it was short-lived. Summoning her courage, she crept toward the closet, peered through the peephole. She could see was distorted darkness and rain-smeared glass. As she reached for the doorknob, the knocking came again, louder, more insistent, and now it seemed to be right at eye level. Sarah froze, her blood turning to ice water. What was that thing doing on the other side of the door? Then, as quickly as it had started, the knocking stopped. Only the wind and the rain remained. Relief flooded through her, but she still didn't move. She stood perfectly still, straining to listen. When she heard nothing for a full minute, she finally relaxed, allowing herself to turn away from the door and stumble into the closet. But it was empty. The car keys were still on their hook. Grasping them, she fled to the safety of her car and curled up inside, burying her face in her hands. Her whole body trembled with suppressed sobs. Whatever had been out there, she didn't want to stay and find out. She'd come out to the lake house to get away from the chaos of the city and her problems, not to become part of some horror movie. As the minutes dragged by, she forced herself to calm down, telling herself that it had probably just been a branch scraping against the door in the wind. But when a loud crash broke the silence, Sarah whirled around, her scream dying in her throat. One of the living room windows had been shattered and a dark figure pressed against the broken glass. Startled, Sarah slammed her foot on the accelerator and swerved out into the yard. But as she did, she caught sight of the man again. He'd shifted position, rainwater streaming down his face, skewering any features, leaving only the impression of something unnaturally smooth. He wasn't trying to climb in, he was just watching her. The backup lights on the house sputtered and died, plunging the yard into darkness. In the split-second flash of lightning that followed, Sarah saw him disappear. But the crashing continued, and then the knocking started up again, softly, from inside the house. This time, it came from the hallway closet. Sarah's blood ran cold. She hadn't left the front door open. Whoever or whatever had gotten in through the back must have followed her. She fumbled with her keys, unlocked the car, and scrambled out. Turning slowly, she saw the closet door swaying open, as though something was trying to push its way out. Terror gripping her heart, Sarah ran blindly through the underbrush, stumbling, falling, ignoring the scrapes and bruises, as she fled toward the relative safety of the road. She didn't dare look back. She didn't want to know what was behind her. But every instinct screamed at her to run, to keep running. And then her foot hit something hard and she fell, sprawling onto the rough ground, tears streaming down her face. Breathless, she lay there frozen, listening. The crashing and the knocking had stopped. Whatever had been in the house was out and moving toward her. She didn't want to look, but something compelled her to raise her head and slowly turn toward the sound of crunching leaves and snapping twigs. Through blurry eyes, she saw a dark shape emerge from the trees. Something large and shapeless, all sharp angles and disturbing stillness. It advanced toward her inexorably, like a predator stalking its prey. Sarah scrambled back, hitting her shoulder on a rock. Pain flared, anchoring her in place. The creature loomed closer, blocking the moonlight. She stared up at its face, or what should have been its face, except there was nothing there. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. Just an unnatural smoothness, like polished stone. Its expressionless gaze seemed to bore into her, stripping away all pretense, all hope, all humanity. Sarah wanted to scream, to beg for mercy, but terror froze her in place. In its fathomless depths, she saw a reflection of her own fear, distorted and magnified, mocking her helplessness. And then it opened its mouth. It wasn't a gaping abyss like she'd imagined. There was a tongue in there, wet and fleshy and human, lips curled into a smile. It wasn't the predatory snarl she'd expected, but something far worse, far more chilling. Something that spoke of intelligence, of malice, of forethought, of a hunger that went beyond mere flesh. The creature leaned closer, its breath hot on her face, smelling of decay and damp earth. In its eyes, she saw her own image, distorted and grotesque, like a funhouse mirror. It was mocking her, reveling in her terror. And then it spoke, its voice a raspy whisper that scraped against her sanity. "I've been waiting for you, Sarah." Its words dripped with a sickening sweetness that set her teeth on edge. "We have so much to talk about, so much to share." But Sarah could only stare, paralyzed with a primal fear that transcended reason. She wanted to scream, to claw at its eyes, to bite its hand, but her limbs felt leaden, her muscles refusing to obey. She was trapped in a nightmare, held fast by an ancient evil that had awakened to claim her as its own. The creature's grin widened, bearing rows of needle-like teeth that glistened in the moonlight. "Don't be afraid, Sarah," it purred, its voice a silken thread of menace. "I won't hurt you. Not yet, anyway." It leaned even closer, its icy breath ghosting over her skin. "You're mine now, Sarah, and no one can save you." With that, it lunged. Sarah's scream tore through the night, swallowed by the darkness as she was dragged into the abyss. The last thing she saw was the creature's face, a grotesque parody of humanity, twisted in a rictus of triumph. Then everything went black. In the eerie silence that followed, the only sound was the creature's soft chuckle echoing through the trees. "Welcome home, Sarah," it whispered, its voice dripping with unholy delight. "We have so much to discuss. The plans we'll make. The chaos we'll unleash." And as the moon dipped behind the clouds, Sarah Harper vanished without a trace, leaving behind only the whisper of her screams and the promise of a darkness that would never end. What do you think? Is there anything scarier than a knock at the door in the middle of the night? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe for more terrifying tales. Now check out these videos or click the link below to get to the playlist.